Hey everyone, and welcome to this last home group of our 2025 season. I hope that you have enjoyed it this year, and I hope that you will continue when we start again in February. And I'm just looking forward to all that. It's kind of exciting to be able to maybe put a bookend or maybe close a chapter in one section and then get ready to move on to something different or something new. For the past few weeks, Pastor Matt Ramirez and I have been preaching sermons specifically on the book of Deuteronomy in chapters 30 and 31 about how Moses was quite literally at the end of his life. He's coming to the very end of his life. And it's time for Joshua and Caleb and the Israelites to begin warring, to begin fighting. But if you'll remember, 40 years prior, God had already told Moses that Moses was not going to be able to go into the promised land because of his sin, because of his disobedience. So we find that the entire book of Deuteronomy, that Moses is quite literally setting up this newer generation for success. He's doing everything that he can to remind them of God's law and what God has called them to, and also God's promises, and reminding them to be strong and to be courageous. These are things that they're going to need to remember walking into the season, because you have a generation before them that was accustomed to slavery, and they decided to forego their promise because they allowed fear to rule them. But now you have this newer generation that has come along, and they are strong. I'm sure that they have been preparing in their hearts and in their minds, and they are ready to fight. They're tired of wandering in the desert. They are ready to take their promise and to walk in that promise. But we also know that to walk in this promise, it's going to require something of them. God's just not going to hand it to them on a silver platter. He is going to use this time. He is going to use these wars, if you will, with other people to strengthen them, to condition them, to prepare them what they are going to have to do to keep their land, to keep their promise. You know, I think of how Moses must have felt in this particular season in his life. You know, he had been through so much with God's people. And, you know, quite literally, they had probably given him ulcers on top of ulcers. They had stressed him out on more than one occasion. And I'm sure at this point in his life, at 120 years of age, he was tired. He was tired mentally. He was tired physically. He was probably maybe even a little tired spiritually. But when you read the words of Deuteronomy, it's really special to see how he is really pushing this new generation forward. You know, the thing that I so appreciate about Moses' story is Moses knew that the end of his days was coming. So he was able to prepare. He was able to leave them with information and leave them with reminders that would guide them going forward. You see, Moses had a chance to plan ahead. Deuteronomy, the entire book of Deuteronomy, is like Moses' last will and testament, if you will, to the Israelites. And it's quite a special book if you want to read through it, just to be reminded of what God has not only done in the past, but it's also looking forward to what God is about to do. So it's an exciting book, but it's also just a reminder, an overall arching picture of all that they have been through. You know, when we get ready to go into those warring seasons, it's going to require something of us sometimes. It's going to require us to fight. It's going to require us to choose faith over fear. You know, Moses was in a place where he was able to prepare them for what was about to come. He was able to give them parting words. You know, we don't always have that. I look around us at the state of our world and the different things that we have encountered just in days past or in the past month. We have had the death of a young political figure who was a father, who was a husband, who basically was in his early 30s and had his entire life ahead of him. But we know that someone took his life because they didn't like his message. He really didn't have a chance to plan. But you see, the life that he lived prior to was a testament of what God had begun to do in his heart and in his mind. And if I'm being honest with you, this young man, he was far from perfect. There were certain times that he would say things and I would kind of cringe a little bit. Even here in our own church, we have experienced some loss recently. In my own personal life, 36 hours ago, from the moment that I am recording this video, I just found out that someone who has served as a spiritual mentor in my life, someone who has helped me along in ministry since my latter teenage years, just had a massive heart attack and died unexpectedly. He had 3 children. He had 1 grandchild. Just everything to live for. And he didn't necessarily, this wasn't something that he planned for. You don't just pencil in massive heart attack on your day calendar. We don't plan for that kind of stuff. Sometimes those things happen and we don't necessarily have a chance to plan. But even though my friend didn't have a chance to speak any last words to his family because it all just happened in an instant, the life that he had lived up until that point stood as a testament of what God had called him to. Some of our friends in that it's a big friend group. We were discussing some things on one of the social media sites, and someone was talking about how he had just decided to take a little sabbatical, take a little time off. And he said that he had been seeking for God to give him wisdom on what this next season of his life was going to look like. And he said the only resounding message that he continued to hear in his heart and in his mind was, finish well. Simple words, but so powerful. Finish well. What does your world look like right now? Are you in a state of struggle? Have you been dealing with some things that seem to be a little bit heavier? If you look in Ecclesiastes 3, we find that there is a season and a time for every activity under heaven. This is what King Solomon tells us. And in that moment, in those first 7 or 8 verses, he tells us, there is a time to be born and a time to die. There's a time to plant and a time to harvest. There is a time to tear down and there's a time to build up. It's important that we know our season, but it's also important that we be reminded that a season is just that. It's just a season. We can't decide to take up residence in whatever that season is. The Israelites could have continued to prepare themselves over and over and over and over again, but there comes a time where we have to step out in faith. We have to do what it is that God is calling us to do and walk in faith to the promise that he has given us. Now, just like it required the Israelites to fight to receive their promise, there are going to be times that we're going to have to fight to receive our promise as well. The one resounding message that I have been receiving throughout this entire season and all that our church has been dealing with and our church has been going through, I feel the Holy Spirit encouraging me, which means that I'm going to encourage you to prepare yourself, to get ready. Because I genuinely feel that we are moving headlong into what I would term as a rubber band season. Yeah, I know. Doesn't seem too fun, huh? In those rubber band seasons, we tend to be stretched in ways. And if the rubber band could talk, I'm sure it would say, stop, that's uncomfortable. Leave me in my original position. But you see, it's in those seasons where we're being stretched that God is really preparing us for what is next. So I want us to prepare ourselves. I want us to get ready for what's coming, to prepare for that stretching and to make sure that we're choosing faith over fear. But also, let's think about the message that we're leaving behind. Let's think about what we are leaving for the future generations. Just like Moses did, we need to be training, we need to be teaching, we need to be mentoring, we need to be preparing those future generations to inherit their promise, because it's not always going to be easy and they're going to be hard seasons. but seasons pass. We can't stay stuck in those seasons. So today's going to maybe be a little reflective. Today is going to maybe be a little bit of a, hey, maybe wake up a little bit, kind of jostle you. You know, maybe as a people we have gotten a little bit lackadaisical, and maybe it's time for us to make sure that our armor is fully affixed. Make sure that we are training this next generation. Make sure that we are preparing for what not only comes next for us, but helping them prepare whatever is coming next for them. Folks, I've so enjoyed this 2025 home group season, and I'm looking forward to the wonderful things that God is going to do in 2026, but I just feel the need to say, get ready, get ready. We're about to be stretched. And stretching is okay. There's nothing wrong with it, but it may be uncomfortable at times. But remember, just a season. It will pass. Everyone, please keep your eyes and ears open. Come January, we're going to be honoring our home group pastors and thank them for all that they have done this past year. And we will be gearing up for a new season, as you've already heard me state. And I want you to be prepared for that. When that time comes, please make sure that you're sending some cards. Make sure that you are sending some text. Bless them. If you can bake them a cake or make them some cookies. Do something to let them know that you love them. Home group pastors, let me publicly say, I thank you so much for all that you have done. And I just look forward for us to continue in this partnership together. I love you all, and I will see you soon. And keep pressing forward. Keep preparing. Get ready, get ready, get ready. Love y'all.